Hello friends, I hope you all are doing great. I, CA Pujan Kapadia, welcome you all on my today's lecture of the subject Advanced Accounting and Auditing, Paper 5. Friends, today we are going to continue with the topic that we are pursuing in the last lecture, Objectives of Audit. Before starting with the today's topic, I would just like you all to recall what we have covered till date in this particular unit. The first thing that we covered was the various types of objectives. Basically, as I told you in the last lecture, the objectives of audit are basically classified into three different types. First was principal or the main objectives, under which we had two main points. First was to verify whether all the accounts are written correctly or not. Second is to ensure that the financial statements show true and fair view. The second category was basically talking about the subsidiary or the incidental objectives, under which we studied different types of errors and we were talking about the frauds. The third part was other objectives, under which we talked about moral check on employees, complying with the provisions of Companies Act 2013, and to make our books of accounts more reliable in order to create trust in government officials. Then we have taken a look over the types of errors. The first was errors of omission, that is, I am not recording the transaction in my books of accounts. Second was errors of commission, which talks about I am recording my transaction, but I am recording it or posting it in a wrong manner. Third was errors of principle. I am recording the transactions, but the transactions are not recorded as per the fundamental accounting principles. As we know, if I'm purchasing a machine, machinery account should be debited and not the purchase account. This is nothing. This is the fundamental accounting error. So it is known as error of principle. Next we saw was compensating errors. That is, if the error on a debit side is being offset by the error on the credit side, the overall trial balance is not affected. Such error is known as compensating errors. And the last part that we studied were the clerical errors, that are the other small mistakes that we are having. Then we studied errors affecting trial balance and errors not affecting trial balance. Moving ahead to the last part of the last lecture, what we have done was detection of errors when trial balance do not tally. So if I feel that my trial balance is not getting tallied, there is a difference between the debit side and the credit side. What is the step that I'm going to follow? The first part of re-examination of trial balance. So if you feel that there is a difference between debit side and credit side of the trial balance, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to check whether all the ledger accounts balances are collected recorded or not, whether all the account balances are recorded in the correct side or not. Second, still if I'm not getting the error, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the ledger individually. I'm going to check that the posting has been done correctly. I'm going to check that whether all the closing balance has been brought forward correctly in the next year as a opening balance. Still, if I'm not getting the error, what I'm going to check is I'm going to check the original books of entry like general, cash book and subsidiary books. Then I gave you two techniques that were just a trial and error methods, that if the difference is there between debit side and credit side, what we are going to do is we are going to divide the entire difference by 2 and is going to check for the resultant figure. For example, I told there is a difference of 50,000. What I'm going to do is I'm going to divide 50,000 by 2. So the answer is 25,000. Now I'm going to find out for an entry whose amount is 25,000. Second, if the difference between the two sides is divisible 9 by 9, then what I'm going to interpret is there are fair chances of any digit being misplaced, like 52 is written as 25 or vice versa. So we have studied till here. Then you have given test your knowledge series with 5 MCQs, which I hope all of you might have got correctly. Now starting with the fresh session. Now today what we are going to deal with is the types of fraud. We have discussed in the last lecture that under fraud we are going to study fraud with respect to 3 different things. It is related to cash, with respect to goods, and with respect to manipulation of account. The first topic that I'm going to cover today is embezzlement or misappropriation of cash. How this thing can take place, how can one misappropriate the cash, we are going to deal with this thing. First is, if I am entering into a transactions of sales, in the transaction of sales, how can we embezzle the cash? The first point what we can do is, as an accountant, what I can do, cash received from customer is pocketed. I have sold a goods of rupees 1 lakh rupees. Customer has give 99,000 by check and 1,000 as cash. What I'm doing is, I'm recording in books that there was a transaction of only 99,000 and I'm pocketing that 1,000 rupees that I have getting in terms of cash. Second is, cash received from the debtors is not recorded. For example, Mr. A, who was my debtor, he has given me 50,000 rupees against the bill which was pending. I have received that amount, but what I'm doing is, I'm not recording this amount as receipt in my cash book. And what I'm doing, I'm directly taking this 50,000 along with me. Third point is fictitious entries. That is the wrong entries, which is not actual one, but just I'm showing in books of accounts of discount, sales return, bad debts. Bad debts, you are very well aware. If I'm showing bad debts, it is nothing. It is my loss. So, for example, Mr. A, to whom I have sold goods of rupees 50,000 on credit. Fine. Now, what I'm doing is, I'm showing rupees 5,000 as bad debts from Mr. A. As a result of which, his final balance that he is supposed to pay me is 45,000. That is 50,000. That was original sale amount minus 5,000. That was the amount of bad debts. So what I'm going to show in my books of account is, he is going to pay me 45,000. But actually, he is not aware of this transaction. So he is actually going to pay me 50,000 rupees. So what I'm going to do over here is, I am going to record 45,000 as cash received from Mr. A, and I'm going to keep 5,000 rupees along with me. So these are the different ways how we can embezzle cash in the transaction of sales. Most important technical 2-mark question that is more likely to be asked to you in your examination, and one of my personal favorite also, the word goes as teaming and leading. Again, I am pronouncing it is teaming and leading. Just learn the spelling of this word because it is a technical word that is specifically used in audit. Now let's understand what is teaming and leading. Concealing the money received from one customer and then crediting his account when the money is received from the next customer. Let's take an example. I am having two debtors, Mr. A and Mr. B. I have to receive rupees 10,000 from Mr. A and to receive 20,000 from Mr. B. I hope you are clear with the example. I am having two debtors. Outstanding balance of Mr. A is 10,000. Outstanding balance of Mr. B is 20,000. Now, Mr. A is paying me 10,000 rupees to settle out his account. What as an accountant I am doing is, I am doing no entry of this particular transaction. So the amount that I am receiving from Mr. A, I am directly keeping it into my pockets. Now when Mr. B is going to pay me 20,000 rupees, what I am going to do is, I am going to adjust 10,000 rupees of what he has paid into Mr. A's account and going to adjust remaining 10,000 rupees in Mr. B's account. So what is the overall effect that we will understand? First of all, you know the outstanding balance of A was 10,000, B was 20,000. Mr. A paid 10,000 rupees. I have passed no entry in my books of account, as a result of which I have already taken away those 10,000 rupees. Now, when Mr. B is paying me 20,000 rupees, I am telling to my owner, or I am showing in my books of accounts, that it is not 20,000 from Mr. B. I have received 10,000 from Mr. A and 10,000 from Mr. B. Are you getting, friends? So what I am doing is, the amount that I have received from Mr. B, I am adjusting it in Mr. A's account. And the amount that Mr. A has actually paid me, I am taking it away along with me. So this is known as teaming and leading transaction. So this all are the types how we can embezzle cash in the transactions of sales. Now let's move ahead to the transaction of purchase. The first part of wrong payments for fictitious purchases. I have not actually purchased anything, but I am recording a wrong name, imaginary name of Mr. X, who is not existent, and I am telling that I am paying him rupees 10,000 rupees as a fictitious purchase. So actually there was no purchase, there is no payment. But what I am doing is, I am taking a fictitious purchase bill and I am paying imaginary 10,000 rupees. So on books it will be payment to Mr. X, but actually there is no person who is Mr. X. Fine. So that 10,000 rupees are going into my pocket. Second is payment of same bill is shown twice or duplicate bill. For example, I have purchased goods of rupees 10,000 from Mr. A. I am paying Mr. A rupees 10,000 rupees. But what I am doing is I am showing the payment entry 2 times in my books of account. So instead of payment of 10,000 rupees, the books is being debited by 20,000 rupees. So बाकी का 10,000 कहाँ पे जाएगा? Into my pocket. The third is omission of discount allowed in books. For example, I have purchased goods of rupees 10,000 for Mr. A. Mr. A offered me discount of rupees 1,000. So the net amount I am supposed to pay him is 9,000. What I am doing as an accountant, I am not showing the effect of discount in my books of account. So what is payable now? 10,000 ka 10,000 pura. As a result of which, at the time of payment of 10,000 to Mr. A, I will be paying 9,000 to Mr. A, which was due to him actually, and the remaining 1,000 will be going into my pocket. So these are certain ways how embezzlement occurs in the transactions of purchases. And just giving you 1 minute, just go through all the points I have written over here, how the embezzlement of cash occurs in the entries of sales, in the entries of purchase. And focus on the entry of teaming and lading. Well, I hope you have gone through all the points I have written over here. I'm just making a note once again, friends. Please be clear with the concept of teaming and lading. It is very likely to be asked in your examination. As I told you, friends, teaming and lading, what is it? When the payment which is received from one debtor is adjusted against the payment of another debtor is known as teaming and lading. Moving ahead, how we can embezzle cash in cash receipts. The first is concealing receipts. That is, if I'm receiving from any debtor any kind of payment, I'm not showing it in my books of account. This is known as concealing the receipts. Third is recording less receipts than actual. If I'm receiving 10,000 rupees, I'm recording only 7,000 rupees. So remaining 3,000 is being embezzled. Third is misappropriating money received on bill discount. If I have discounted the bill for rupees 45,000, what I'm doing is I'm misappropriating that money. I'm keeping that money or using that money for some other purpose. So what I'm doing over here is again embezzlement of cash. Third is undercasting the receipt side of the cash book. My receipt side of the cash book's total is basically 50,000 rupees, but I'm showing it at 48,000 rupees. So 2,000 is going into my pocket. This is basically with transactions of cash receipt. Now let's go for cash payments. Amount recorded as deposited into the bank but not actually deposited. I am passing the entry on the payment side of cash book and I am depositing rupees 5,000 into the bank, but actually I am not depositing this amount. Second, wages paid under a fictitious name, that is non-existing worker. I am having 3 workers A, B, C. What I am doing in my wage book, I am showing that I am paying wages to 4 workers A, B, C, D. Now Mr. D is actually not my worker. Fine, he is not in existence, but I am showing a dummy entry that I am also paying him wages. The amount that is being paid to him is directly being misappropriated by me. The third part is recording excess payment at actual. I am paying rupees 100 rupees for some snacks, but what I am showing it in the books of account is 150 rupees. So I am showing excess amount that what I am paying. Next point is fictitious purchase entries of miscellaneous items. For example, I am a teacher. I need to buy chalks. What I am doing is I am showing some wrong entries. I am showing some dummy entries that I have purchased some extra boxes of chalks. Fine, which is actually wrong. So again, the payment done for the chalks is being misappropriated. The last is, as we have studied over here, undercasting receipt side of cash book. Here I have written overcasting payment side of cash book. So mota it is opposite of cash receipt. The opposite is cash payment. Now you understood how the cash is being misappropriated. Now let's check how the ways to detect the misappropriation of cash. First is what we can do is we can balance the cash book daily. So what we can do is we can do the balancing of the cash book. We can find out daily balances of the cash book and compare the same with the physical cash which we are available with us. So it becomes easy to find out if there is any difference. We can find out the reason for the same on that particular day. Second is what again I would discuss, comparing the cash book with actual physical cash daily. Third is BRS, that you all know, bank reconciliation statement, at least on a monthly basis. So we come to know that no one has entered dummy entries like cash deposited into the bank or cash withdrawn from the bank. And last is what we can do, which is practically in implementation, confirmation of balances with the debtors and creditors on a regular basis. As a businessman, what I am supposed to do is on a monthly basis or on a 15 days basis, I am going to contact my debtor and creditor and ask them what is the outstanding balance with them in their books of account. So what can I do is I compare the confirmation what they are sending to me along with the actual position in my books of account. So if there is any mistake or any misappropriation in that particular account, I can easily trace the same. So this is all about how to detect the misappropriation of cash. Again, I am giving you 1 minute. Just go through this slide quickly. Well, I hope you have gone through this. So basically, this is something about how the cash embezzlement occurs. Second is how we can detect that the cash is misappropriated. Again, moving ahead, we can compare the receipt side of the cash book and we can compare the payment side of the cash book. Now the most important point, how we can prevent, sorry, how we can prevent the misappropriation of cash. First is we can set the internal check system. That is, work of one person is automatically checked by the another person. If you can recall, at the time of discussing the syllables, I have made you learn this concept, 4 eyes concept. Remember, in the banking system, maker checker concept. So what we are basically going to do is the person who is making the entry, the same person is not going to verify or check the entry. The checking need to be done by some another person. As a result of which, if one person is purposefully trying to make some misappropriation, it can be easily be caught by the another person who is checking this. Second is restrict the powers of cashier. We should limit the power of cashier, like he cannot do a transaction more than this much amount. As a result of which, there can be placed a control on the spending habit or the payment habit of the cashier. Third is impressed system of petty cash book. I hope you can recall the same. You have already studied it in your accounts 11 standard. What is it? Basically, when we are preparing any kind of petty cash book, that is what day-to-day expenses, we prepare it on an impress system, under which a fixed amount is given to the petty cashier at the beginning of the month. So we have a fixed amount allocated for a petty cashier. Every month he'll be provided only the excess amount to meet that particular balance. Like for example, I have decided the amount to be given to the petty cashier every month is 5,000 rupees. So for example, in the month of April, I have provided him 5,000 rupees. During the entire month, he incurs the expenditure of 3,500. So he is having the balance of 1,500 rupees. Now he'll ask for the money because the next month is going to start, that is May. Now as a main cashier, how much amount I am going to pay him is total should be 5,000. He is already having 1,500. I am only going to pay him 3,500 rupees. This is nothing. This is the petty cash system on the impressed basis. Next is payment by cross check. We should avoid payment by cash, as a result of which there would be no question of misappropriating the cash. Next is authority only to responsible person to grant discount. We know that when we are doing any business, especially the retail business, we have given some authorities to the salesman. Okay, yes, if a customer comes, you can upfrontly give some amount of discount, but we should give this power, this authority only to the responsible person, as a result of which the chances or the possibility of misappropriation of cash can be reduced. Next, again, the most important point from the audit viewpoint, that is separation of the duties. You can read it over here. Separation of duties. Same person can't do accounting entry and posting entry. So the person who is accounting a transaction should not post the transaction. So if one person who is a culprit who is entering in the books of account, the person who is posting the same can easily find out the fraud he is trying to do over here. Hence, we should not give the entire responsibility of one transaction on one person only. The responsibility and the authorities should be segregated, should be divided between at least two persons. Next is statement of account balances to the debtors, creditors regularly. We have studied we should ask for the confirmation 15 days or on a monthly basis from the debtors and the creditors. Next is internal check on the wage and salary payment. We should check that no payment is made to ghost account. Ghost is basically nothing. The person who is actually not in existence, that I related in your example. I am having 3 workers, A, B, and C, but I am showing that I am paying wages to 4 workers, A, B, C, and D. So the account of Mr. D is a ghost account. Last is physical access control. We should be having proper lock system, restriction on entry, so that no one could directly reach the cash box. Fine, because if he is not able to reach the cash box, he won't be able to misappropriate the cash. There should be certain access control. We should make a proper lock and key mechanism so that access to cash box is limited only to the responsible and authorized persons. This is how we can prevent the misappropriation of cash. And this is the end of the first short note, misappropriation of cash. I would just request you to take a quick view on the prevention of misappropriation of cash topic. Well, I hope you have seen the topic. So I'll just like to recall what we have studied today till now is the topic was embezzlement or misappropriation of cash. First point that we learned is how cash can be embezzled, how cash can be misappropriated, under which we have studied it can be done in the transactions of sales. Main point was scheming and leading. It is adjustment of receipt from one debtor against the account of the another debtor. Second was transactions of purchase. Third was transaction of cash receipts, and fourth was transaction of cash payments. Then we studied how can we detect. I came to know, okay, fine, there is a misappropriation of cash in these transactions, but how can I find out that this has actually occurred? We have studied the various points like balancing the cash book daily, making bank reconciliation on a monthly basis, asking for the confirmation from the debtors and creditors, etc. Last part is I came to know, I have detected that the cash has been misappropriated. Now, how can I prevent such things? So the most important point was we need to set an internal check system, that is a maker checker concept If a one person is making a transaction, doing a transaction, the second person should check that particular transaction. So each transaction should pass through 4 eyes, 2 eyes of the maker and 2 eyes of the checker. Then we can restrict the power of the cashier, so we can reduce the authority. Petty cash book on Impress system, that is having or maintaining the same opening balance every month. Payment by cross check, so that there is no involvement of cash. Next was authority only to responsible person to grant the discount. Again, important point, separation of duties, that is segregation of duty. An entire transaction should not be completed only by one person. There should be at least 2 persons involved for completion of a particular transaction. Then statement and confirmation accounts from debtors, creditors, internal checks so that no payment is done to ghost worker, Mr. D in our example. And last is physical access control. The cash box should not be accessed by each and everyone. It should be restricted only to the owner or the responsible persons only. I hope I am clear with the topic that I have explained you today. So we are stopping for the day over here. From the next lecture, we are going to deal with misappropriation of goods and manipulation of accounts. I thank all of you for your patient listening and hope to see you soon in my next lecture. Thank you.